Hello everybody, good evening and welcome to the United Stand. This is the latest Manchester United news as United's Supporters Trust send a warning to the Glazers. We'll talk about that. We'll also be talking about Pochettino being out of time, but will Manchester United give him more time? Also want to talk about Bruno Fernandez. He's created more chances than anybody else since 2020. But is he the right man for Manchester United as we build forward, or does he need to adapt his game? I want to get into that Bruno debate. Also, Dembele, Sabitzer, Dybala, we'll be talking about them, as well as a few other bits as well. Lots to get into in the show tonight. Looking forward to it. I hope you are as well. But first of all, before we get into that, we've got a little quiz for you, sponsored by Boohoo Man on the show tonight. As you can see, I'm wearing some of the Boohoo Man Active range. It's all about looking good and feeling comfortable when you're out being active. This could be you when you're at the gym, going for a walk, or streaming to thousands of people like me. So because this week is an international week, Boohoo Man wanted to test the United Stand's England knowledge. So get in the chat and let me know which three Manchester United players have the most caps for England. Now I'm going to give you some time, and yeah, I think I would have got that. So in the order 3, 2, 1, get in the chat. And whilst everyone's doing that, as always, because Boohoo Man love all of you lots who watch the show, they want to give you a special discount to United Stand viewers. So when you use the code EXTRA at checkout, you will get your usual 40% off. Plus, you will get an additional 10% off after the discount has been applied. This extra 10% off applies to everything on the site except for certain sale items. Thank you very much to Boohoo Man for that. So let's have a quick look in the chat before we get on with the show. A few people got it right. Life at the Goat Post says Charlton. Narc says Rooney. Beckham, Rooney, Scholes says MA. Maguire up for sale. No, he's not up for sale. Rooney, Beckham, Charlton says Abby. And Beckham, Charlton, Rooney. Okay, so I can tell you the answer is this. Third place, Bobby Charlton. Sir Bobby Charlton with 106 caps. Second place, not Sir David Beckham yet with 115 caps. And in first place, Wayne Rooney with 120 caps. So they are the three. Charlton, Beckham, Rooney. There you go. Fantastic. And well done to them. As I said, please use the code EXTRA. When you use Boohoo Man as your link in the video description, you'll get 40% off plus an additional 10% with the code EXTRA. The link is in the chat and you can get yourself lots and lots of activewear range with that big discount exclusive to the United Stand with the code EXTRA. Thank you very much to Boohoo Man for the quiz and the interactivity as ever. And I'm feeling very comfortable in my active range tonight. Anyway, time to get active on the latest Manchester United news. See what I did there? Active. I've got some extra news. Extra. Use the code. I will stop doing that. Anyway, so let's start off. I do want to talk about the warning that's been given to the club and the Glazers by the fans, the Manchester United Supporters Trust. We'll update you with that in a minute, but I think people really want to know about what's going on with the managerial situation. So we've got another story coming out today from the Mirror. I would just say, first of all, we have the Sun this morning, we've now got the Mirror. We've had the Manchester Evening News talking about Ten Hag last week, saying he's the preferred option. I really do want to hear something from Ornstein or Romano or Ducker or Stone or Whitwell, because they are close to the club, and I think when they start talking about Ten Hag, basically they're tapping merchants in a way. And I know people will take that quite offensively, but what I mean by a tapping merchant is they score. Like they very rarely miss. They're not Timo Werner. Like they're not going to miss a tap-in. And I like Timo Werner, by the way, but it's just the same that everyone says. But I think if Whitwell, Ducker, Stone, Ornstein or Romano say that Ten Hag's favourite to get the job and a deal is close, it's going to happen. I still think you've got enough to be optimistic about, but I do think that they are tapping merchants in relation to... it's what we need. We need a tap-in on this, so we'll wait and see what happens. However, what the Mirror are saying is that PSG are aware of Manchester United's interest in Pochettino, but they want Pochettino to hand in his notice. They don't want to sack him, because if they sack him on the contract they agreed with him, they'll have to give him 11 million, plus I think it's another 6 million to his staff. So 17 million pounds to sack Pochettino, but they know Manchester United are interested. So they don't want to sack him, give him 17 million quid, and then he comes to United and earns loads more. So what they basically want to happen, according to this story, is for Pochettino to resign so they don't have to pay him off, and then because he's resigned, if he goes straight to Man United will have to pay a fee to PSG. So there's a contrast there. They can sack Pochettino and he goes straight to Man United and it costs them 17 million. Or they can get money for Pochettino to go into Manchester United. So there will be a delay there, won't they, if that happens? And PSG are in no rush for that to happen. So effectively, United are back where we said this morning. Now, in the same article, it says that Ajax are open to discuss Ten Hag's departure with Manchester United, and a severance package would be less than £5 million. So Ten Hag's going to be the cheaper option. I think it's just very interesting now. Hi Mark, how do you feel about Rangnick looking to sell Maguire? Trevor, I don't know where this story is coming from. We'll talk about it in a moment, but I just don't believe it, and I'll tell you for why. If I've got a bag of stones to sell, no one's going to buy them if I'm going to sell them for like £50, and it's just a bag of stones that you can pick up from the side of the road. And that's a bit like Harry Maguire. Like, we can try and sell him if we want, but he cost 80 million 3 years ago. We're not going to sell him for 8 million. We're going to want 50, 60 million. No one's going to pay him that. I don't care whether you like Harry Maguire or not. To be honest, I can't be asked to talk about Harry Maguire and whether he's good enough for United or not. If he's going to stay at the club like I think he is, I hope he can get better. But the reality is he ain't going anywhere. He ain't going anywhere. He's on 200 grand a week and he costs 80 million quid. Nobody is going to give him them wages, and nobody's going to give us more than 40 million for him. So he ain't going anywhere. PSG can keep Poch, says Jack Lynch. And, well, look, let me just wrap this up before we move on to the next one. But I feel that we are in a very definitive situation now with the managerial situation. We as fans know that a deal can be done this week for Ten Hag where he finishes up at Ajax in the summer, agrees to come to Manchester United now, and work can be done on the summer with Ajax comfortable with that, Ten Hag comfortable with that, and Manchester United comfortable with that. If we delay beyond this week, we clearly want Pochettino, and that's what I'm saying. There is no reason to delay this deal. Ajax are happy to discuss it with us this week. Ten Hag wants to discuss it with us this week. If he is our preferred option, we should be discussing it with him, getting him in place so that we get working on transfers and things like that in April with his knowledge. And people say, well, you can't do that. I tell you what, if I'm Man United and I'm in charge, I chat with Ajax this week, I chat with Ten Hag this week, we sign a pre-agreement that he's coming in the summer. You go back to Ajax, crack on with your job. Thank you very much to Ajax. Right, okay. Might send you a few WhatsApp or have a few phone calls with you. Okay, you've had your game at the weekend. You've got a day off. You've got an hour to talk about United? Yeah, I have. Okay, what sort of midfielder would you like? Because we're looking at this. We've done a lot of work on Declan Rice and Tchouaméni. Which one would you prefer? These conversations can happen in April. We're not asking him to take a bloody training session. We're just asking him what sort of players he would like to bring in the summer. That can start the minute this week is over if we agree the deal with him. If we don't agree the deal with him, then why are we not dealing the agree with him, setting a deal up with him? Because I think we're still hanging on for Pochettino, and I think the club have got to be very, very careful. They've got to be very, very careful, and I will bring the next bit in now. Rangnick didn't have the power to get Zakaria for 5 million. Imagine if they'd let him sell their favourite player, says Jameson. And board prefer Poch. He's their plan A. They can't due to the fee. Ten Hag is plan B. They are spinning this one now, saying Ten Hag is favourite because they can't get Poch, says Dan. Well, look, let's see if they get Ten Hag. But the reality is, story coming out today that the Manchester United Supporters Trust. Remember last summer there was a Zoom call from a Glazer saying that they want to listen to the fans, they want to sort the stadium out, they want to sort out a share scheme for the fans, and we're nearly a year later and nothing's happened. Well, Manchester United Supporters Trust has basically given the Glazers a warning today and said that you've got a little bit more time, but if by the middle of April, which is an anniversary of the Super League, you haven't come back to us with a satisfactory option around shares, then they'll look at other options. What those other options are, I don't know. I don't know whether we'd go back to protests or whatever. But effectively, Manchester United Supporters Trust have said that they would have gone back to they would have gone to the supporters a long time ago, a few months ago, with options on shares. But the options that the club had put forward were not good enough, which means that the shares that the Glazers have offered up are not ones that have got equal voting rights, or they're not sufficient a percentage in the club. So that's going to come to a head quite soon. Next month that'll come to a head, and the reality is the people think of Manchester United Supporters Trust as the vocal people within the trust, but there's members of that trust, and they've always said, to be fair, that they'll put it to a vote. And I don't think the members of that trust are going to vote to have 5% of shares in the club with no voting rights. People wanted, to be honest, a year ago people wanted 50%, 51% with voting rights. So there's going to be a long way off. I personally don't think there's going to be a scenario that the Manchester United Supporters Trust can put to the fans and the fans will vote for it, because I can't imagine. I don't want to get lost in shares and everything like that. But if you think that the Glazers own 100% of Manchester United, which isn't actually technically correct, but in a scenario, the Glazers own 100% of Manchester United. Basically, United fans want 51%. We want full voting rights, and we want 51%. I guarantee the Glazers aren't offering anywhere near that, and they might not even be offering voting rights. So ultimately, it will get rejected, and then the next step's going to be very interesting. So, look, what I'm saying is, if you bring that in, compare it to the manager, there is clearly something rumbling up. Basically, what I said and what many United fans said when that Zoom call happened with Joel Glazer was that was just buying time. That was just, we'll promise you this, this and this to put the fire out of the Super League protests. And it worked to a certain extent. But those fires are going to start burning again because they've not delivered on those promises. And they bought themselves some time. And I think what they wanted to do was buy themselves some time, bring Ronaldo in, be successful on the pitch. And then when we're successful on the pitch, the Glazers stuff goes out anyway. The problem is they bought themselves some time and things have got worse. Even though they brought Ronaldo in, things have got worse. So it's going to be a very interesting month for the club if they don't deliver some. Well, I don't think they will deliver anything in relation to the share price, the share percentage for fans. So I don't think anything will happen there. And they're also going to wait for POCH. They'd be bloody fools. They've got a big thing coming up with the fans in a month's time about this share thing, and they're going to wait for POCH for another month. They've got to go and get Ten Hag. They've got to, because at least I still think the share conversation needs to take place 100%. But at least if they bring Ten Hag in, they give a bit of a boost. They do something that the fans want, and that's what they did last year with Ronaldo and Sancho and Varane, and they're going to have to do it again. So, as I said many times, I think if their preference is to get Pochettino, then it's the biggest mistake they're ever going to make, because they're going to have to wait. They're going to have to wait for 4 or 5 weeks, and they're basically going to be having to have secret conversations with Pochettino about what players he would like, which is off the record. So it's a bloody mess. I'd take a loss on Maguire to get him off the wage bill, says David Page. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with that, but it's an interesting month ahead. But I will say this, I'll put my neck out and say this. If we haven't heard that Ten Hag is our manager by the middle of next week, I think they're going for POCH. So, ramp that pressure up if you want to. Do a countdown tab. I really do think that if by the middle of next week we haven't heard from anybody credible that Ten Hag's our manager, then they're going to wait for Pochettino, and that's the scary thing. But let's just wait and see what happens first, because there's still time for this to be done. It's only Tuesday, and I do believe what I said on Monday morning will come to pass. I think United's board will come into this week deciding who they want to be their manager, and by the end of the week they'll know who's going to be their manager, and it's just whether we're going to know or not. So let's have a look. Somebody just said that there's a bit of an update. Let me just have a quick check on Twitter. This is the wonder of being live. Let's have a quick look here. So Konstantin Eckner, who is a decent journalist around sort of German football, he has said this. He's asked a question. Fair play to at MUFC MPB. It's a really decent Twitter account. One of the good guys has said that, what is the update? What is the latest on Erik Ten Hag to Manchester United? Are United prepared to pay the compensation fee and move close? To which Konstantin Eckner has said he's the number one target. The compensation fee is not an issue. United want to make the signing as soon as possible to start planning the new season. Ten Hag is preparing for United already. I like Konstantin Eckner. I think he's always been a relatively decent journalist, especially around German stories. Ten Hag does have strong links to Germany. He was at Bayern Munich. He sort of went from Dutch football to German football back to Dutch football, so he has got connections there. Is it key enough for us to get really excited? Look, I'm more than happy if you want to get excited about it. That's absolutely fine. I'll be honest with you, it does make me feel excited that we could get him, and I will put my hand up, as I said, and say well done to the club if they do it. I think it's a small step forward and I've said this on Twitter before, if we get Ten Hag, it's a small step forward in about a mile's journey we've got to make to get back where we need to be. He's got to be allowed to get rid of players. He's got to be allowed to have total control on what comes in. He's got to have total control within the football club with the structure around him that supports him. But it's still a first step that's better than a backward step, which I think would be the case under Pochettino. Whether people agree with me or not, that's fine. Am I encouraged by the stories that are coming out? Yes, I am. It's starting to get a little bit like, you know, and then players that we've wanted over the years, the Varans, the Pogba, the Sanchos, and the early rumblings of the story, and you start to think, they won't do this, they'll mess this up. We're starting to get that little drip effect, which is great. So I hope that we are going to get in. Let's just wait and see. I'll go back to what I said a few minutes ago. For me, I think Neil Custis in the Sun, I think he has got links into United. In fact, I know he has. I think that CC Ekner is a good journalist around the German scene, so he seems very certain as well. And there is, Manchester Evening News get information as well, and they said he was the preferred option last week. So there's definitely a movement towards the Ten Hag confidence. I just don't trust the club. And that's why for me, I'm waiting for a tap-in merchant. I'm waiting for a Simon Stone or a Laurie Whitwell or a James Ducker who are well briefed by the club, or an Ornstein or Romano who have very good contacts anyway. So one of those five says Ten Hag's the man that Man United wants, and it's party time. But it's looking good. Hi Mark, Ten Hag would be the perfect manager to United. Let's see if he can fix the midfield. Any news on Greenwood? I keep getting asked about this, Mohammed, and I have got no news on it because it's an ongoing police investigation. So realistically, there is no news until the police give us an update. So there is no news on that. I'm not investigating him, and I don't know anybody who is, and they wouldn't be able to talk about it if they did. Rooney, but I have fear that tomorrow I'll wake up and they'll announce him as next manager, United DNA. No, we're not going to announce Wayne Rooney as our next manager, Jameson. And we should get Edison Alvarez with Ten Hag from Ajax. Also, do you have Fabrizio on the show anytime soon, says Daniel Kirk. I think he's on next Monday. So, yeah. But look, he's not said anything about the managerial situation at the moment. So I wouldn't say it's as advanced as some might say. But we're certainly moving in the right direction. Let's say that. We're definitely moving in the right direction. And money will come into it. And I will repeat what I said at lunchtime. I don't really care if United are going for Ten Hag because he's cheaper. That's just their mistake. They should be going for Ten Hag because he's the better option. As long as we end up with him, I don't really care. I'm not really bothered. At the end of the day, if your dream girl or dream boy is marrying somebody else, and they quite like you, but they like this other guy or girl more, and on the way to the wedding, he disappears. You've not done anything to him, he just disappears. And then she goes, well, I'll give it a week, and if he doesn't turn up, I'll marry you. At the end of the day, they're marrying you. So I don't really care if Manchester United are going for Ten Hag because he's the cheaper option. I believe he's the right option. However we get there doesn't matter to me. If Pochettino is a difficult deal because he's expensive, good. I'm happy about that. So yeah, let's see what happens. But it's moving in the right direction. Doesn't mean it can't steer another way, but it is moving in the right direction. Let's see what happens with it, as I said. So yes, and I think they need to move quickly for many reasons. They need to move quickly because we need to start planning for the summer. We cannot have a repeat of what happened with David Moyes, where David Moyes didn't start the job at United until July the 1st. Like literally didn't start the job, didn't put any groundwork in, didn't tell the club about players to get rid of or players that he wanted. He literally started on July the 1st, 6 weeks before the season started. We need to start on April the 1st. Ten Hag needs to know he's the manager, and then United need to be emailing and in contact with him all the way through to the end of the season so that they can run things by him and plans can be put in place. Because if he doesn't want a Kanji and he wants a different centre-back, then we need to talk to a different centre-back. Have your press contacts told you anything, says Joseph? I've got to be honest. I've got to be honest on this. And no, I can't. I think it's such a big story that it doesn't matter who I message. I don't think they'll give it because I've dropped a few hints. I've even tried to do it different ways. I've gone, I heard we're getting POCH, and they just don't reply. So they know, because they know what'll happen. I'll probably mention. Well, I will mention it. Swear I'm Not Paul, who is also Bundesliga and European football pundit for Sony Sports Network, says Ten Hag to Manchester United being done looks like a matter of time. I mean, it's all speculative at the moment, but it's all moving in the right direction, which is great to see, isn't it? So look, as long as that develops and we get him, we get what we want, and then we move into the point of where we all really want to be, which is discussing what this means for Manchester United's future, because I think many of us know that this season is over. We should bring in Paulo Dybala as well, as him and Bruno can fight for number 10, says Dean. Well, remember, if we get Ten Hag, we've got Donnie Van Der Beek, who was Ten Hag's number 10 at Ajax, so we might not need another 10. I just hope these are true stories. This is similar to what happened with Conte. He wanted the job, and at the end we ended up with an interim in Fletcher, says Mario Franco. And MUFC BB deal looks done according to Ronan Murphy. So Ronan Murphy, Konstantin Ekner in the last half an hour through MUFC MPB have both said that Ten Hag is looking highly likely as Manchester United's next manager. You add that into Manchester Evening News last week saying that he was the preferred option. Neil Custis this morning, the Mirror this afternoon, two more tonight. I mean, as a combination, I'd say it's all tier 2 at the moment. Which is much better than tier 3, 4 or 5. What I want is the tap-in merchant. What I want is one of the famous 5 who either get briefed by the club or have got fantastic contacts. But what I always think is when people come out with tweets like that saying that he's, it's a matter of time and this, that and the other, if it doesn't happen, you look an absolute clown. So, and I don't think those people who are saying that are absolute clowns. So I think it's looking good. But I remember I said this with... Remember, I mean, I don't know how long many of you have been watching, but I'm sure a lot of you have been watching for a while. Remember with Sancho, when we didn't get him, I was 90% club. And then the second time I was like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to believe it until he's holding up a shirt. And I feel with Ten Hag, it's such an important appointment that until I know very much so that he's going to be our manager, I'm still going to have that concern that they might go for Pochettino. Because without a shadow of a doubt, there are people in that football club that want Pochettino. There are players within that football club who want Pochettino. There are board members within that football club who want Pochettino. So it's not a landslide. It's like an election, isn't it? There are votes in place for the opposition, and things can change. But it feels like at the moment that the majority is siding with Ten Hag. And I actually do genuinely believe, as much as you put yourselves down as fans sometimes, I genuinely do believe on this one, that if the fan base had been a bit apathetic and gone, I don't really mind if we get Poch or Ten Hag, there's a big chance we would have ended up with Pochettino. I think that the club are desperate to please you, and I genuinely think that the fans have been considered in this. Maybe not listened to exclusively, but I think they have been listened. I think they have been listened to. And anybody who says that's ridiculous, just remember, a year ago, the owners of this football club were given a very harsh, blunt lesson in who really is the life source of that football club. Not just the protests, the infiltration of Carrington, people talking to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer within the Carrington training ground place. A year ago, this football club was given a stark reminder of the power of fans around this football club, and I think they're fully aware that they can't ignore them. And I do think that fans have been listened to. So if we do end up with Ten Hag, I don't think it will be in any small part. I think it will be down to you. I think you will have had a part in it. What if we are not the only club in for Ten Hag and Madrid Juventus? PSG might also be interested, and he's weighing up his options, says Ren. Well, look, if he goes somewhere else, I mean, again, I think that's a great point. I think United have got to get it right. Imagine if Ten Hag went to Real Madrid or PSG and we end up with Pochettino. We know exactly what's happened. He's snubbed us and we've got Pochettino. That would be even worse. I think that's even worse than choosing Pochettino over Ten Hag. The fact that Ten Hag would snub us and we'd end up with Pochettino would be even worse. So they've got to get this deal done. And from what we know, and I think we do know this, from what we know, he wants the Man United job. So let's wait and see what happens with it. But yeah. Don't forget, Ten Hag bottled the Champions League to none other than Poch, says 3 no balls. Don't forget, 3 no balls is a complete and utter twat. And is an idiot. There you go. We'll move on from that one. Mark, but what about Ten Hag's team? Megan's dad. Don't know what that means. And if he goes somewhere else, it's because United didn't move in fast enough. And I think Arnold wants to make a good impression and thinks appointing Ten Hag would be better than anything Woodward would done, says Tyler. And, you know, that's where I will stand up and say, if he does do that, I will applaud it, because I'm not going to say that... I think the mistake that we do make is that I remember there was one summer, it wasn't last summer. It was one summer, it wasn't last summer. And there was that gif of Ed Woodward walking in like a boss, and people sort of reacted to it and said, oh yeah, Ed Woodward's sorting himself out. And then last summer people were on about Murtaugh, like the Murtaugh effect. I am not going to stand up and go, yeah, we've got a proper CEO just because we appoint Ten Hag, because it's such a small step forward. I'll applaud it and say this is a step in the direction I didn't expect. Well done. Let's move on again. But let's not start running away with, oh yeah, he's a great CEO, this, that and the other. I think it does show a willingness to try a different direction. And I think we all know we need to try a different direction. But if you do get Ten Hag, don't go and buy Declan Rice and Harry Kane. Go and buy Tchouaméni and Núñez and 2 other players for 50 million. That's a step forward in a different direction. Do you have... wanted to send you some handmade Swiss chocolate? No, we don't, Jameson Gray. And Mark, did you see the wage bill in Premier League? Man United players all over the top, says fellow. Well, you know, we pay ridiculous wages and we're ridiculously crap. So, again, this is something that we need to resolve at the football club. Of course we do. So, yeah, we've spoken about the fan situation. We've spoken about the club manager situation. I want to talk about Bruno. We don't want to talk about Bruno. I do want to talk about Bruno, but just before we talk about Bruno, I just wanted to give you 3 sort of transfer stories. Bayern Munich this evening saying that, well, not Bayern Munich themselves, but Christian Falk is very close to Bayern Munich, saying that Sabitzer is available in the summer. I know that's a player that we've been looking at before. Is that a player that we would look at again? I'm thinking Bayern Munich, German links, Ten Hag. He might be looking at a player like that to boost our midfield if Pogba was to leave. It's not gone to plan for him at Bayern Munich, but Bayern Munich have got a lot of options. Would Sabitzer be a player that you would look at? Dybala, obviously, we spoke about at lunchtime. I personally would avoid that, but you know there is an option there. And as we know, Ousmane Dembele at Barcelona is available for free in the summer as well. Is that now a player that you would look at with a manager like Ten Hag? Would you look past his injury problems, which he seems to have got over a little bit this season with Barcelona? He's certainly producing more consistent performance under Xavi than he has done in recent times for Barcelona. So there's players starting to pop up now that you think, yeah, there's an element of what's the rustling noise? I don't bloody know. You're playing with I don't know, David. Do you like ruining the flow of shows with irrelevant, silly comments, David? Go and sit in the corner and have a long, hard think. I was right in a good flow there, talking about Sabitzer, Dybala, and you're talking about a rustling noise. Maybe go to the doctors. Maybe you've got a bloody ear infection or something. I'm shocked that Ten Hag, Ajax, and especially Van der Sar would want to deal with United after the Donnie Van Der Beek debacle. No, Gaza, you're having a laugh. You're having a bloody laugh. As if Terry Ten Hag. As if, I tell you what, if you think I'm talking to you after what you did to Donny, you can do it. I thought you was Dutch. No, I'm Terry Ten Hag. So, no. I mean, as if Erik Ten Hag he's got a dream job there to rebuild a club that's been on its knees for 10 years. I would love the job, but what you did to Donny was a disgrace. Why would he care? Solskjaer's been sacked. There's absolutely no relevancy to how we've treated Donnie Van Der Beek, to whether Erik Ten Hag does the job or whether Ajax deal with us. I mean, you could, even if he brought it up, even if he went, I'd like the job, but I am not happy about what you did to Donnie Van Der Beek, and you're going to have to really convince me to carry on with this interview, you annoying shits. If I was Richard Arnold or John Murtaugh, I'd say, look, you're absolutely right. We bought him thinking he was a great player. That Wally, who was in charge before, just didn't pick him. But you can use him now. We've already bought him for you. It's widely known that the players want Poch. If we get Ten Hag, there's a chance the players will do as they've done with Ren. I don't think all the players want Poch, but that's why it's very important if he comes into the club, he must be allowed to kick players out. I'd love Bastoni at centre-back, tall, young, fast and great with the ball at his feet, says Jameson. And Mark Sky have said Nagelsmann will most probably join City or Liverpool when Klopp or Pep leave. Not Premier League proven at all, like Ten Hag, says Connerty. Yeah. Neither was Pep, neither was Klopp. So, definitely there are lots of options there. But out of those three players, Sabitzer, Dembele and Dybala, I would rank them in this. I wouldn't go near Dybala even though I like him. Very expensive and I'm not sure he'd adjust to the Premier League. I do like Sabitzer. He'd be my number 2 option. I do like Sabitzer, but I suppose you wonder about his mentality having failed at Bayern Munich. And Ousmane Dembele is the best talent. I just worry about his breadstick hamstrings. So look, I'd be very surprised if United went for any of them, but that's how I'd rank it. Do you think Fletcher will be Ten Hag's assistant? Rory Saunders, absolutely not. There's no way in a million years. He might end up sitting on the bench, doing his Tesco shop on his phone, but I don't think he would be involved. No. Who would you say is the best tier 1 journalist? Says Chira. I don't do that. I think if you are, it's like Twitter accounts, Man United news aggregators on Twitter, or journalists like you say, or footballers. I think different people for different jobs. Like, I think for dressing room leaks, there's certain journalists that I think I know more than others. I think for official information coming out of the club, there's certain people coming out with other information as well. So look, as I said, if you want something that I think is nailed on to happen, then there's probably Laurie Whitwell, James Ducker and Simon Stone. I think they're well briefed by the club, in my opinion, after years of experience. If you want something that's definitely going to happen and it's from a journalist who knows a lot of agents as well as club representatives, etc., I think David Ornstein and Fabrizio Romano. But beyond that, I think there are some very good journalists out there that when they say something, I would listen to it. As I've said before, Christian Falk, if it's in relation to German news, I think he's very good. So, but look, we'll always try and keep you up to date with that and give you a fair assessment on how solid the news is. To those who say Ten Hag lost to Poch, just watch that Ajax versus Spurs game. Ajax missed so many chances that it was a miracle Spurs won. Even Poch couldn't believe it. Yes, Shahin, it was the biggest smash and grab job ever. And well done to Spurs for winning. If you only had a choice of Roy Keane or Southgate, who would you have? Says Gav. Well, it would be Roy Keane. It would be Roy Keane, definitely. I just genuinely don't think Southgate's a very good manager, to be honest. I really don't. James Gallagher says it's a bit like Christmas Eve, just waiting for Romano's Here We Go. What I will say is, if it does end up being Ten Hag and it does end up being this week, remember what I said on Monday morning. United will come into this week knowing the manager they want, and they will come out this week knowing the manager they're getting. Let's see. I love for us to get Ten Hag, Mark. However, I'm worried about these players will have mental capability to understand his concept. Look at them now, says Pitch, please. Hi, Mark. Does Donnie finally get the chance that he deserves if we get Ten Hag's? Daniel, 100%. And you've moved us on perfectly onto what I want to talk about now. Would Van der Sar come as part of the team if we get Ten Hag? He's done good things at Ajax and knows what it means to play with and win with United, says Roshan. I don't think so, because I think Van der Sar is more of a sort of CEO. I don't think he's a director of football, really. Do you think players like Tchouaméni, whose club hasn't been in the Champions League, will be bothered by the fact we won't be in it either, says Declan? I don't know. I think you've got to try. It's the same with Declan Rice. You've got to try. But going on to what the question was about Donnie Van Der Beek and whether he would have a big chance under Erik ten Hag, I personally think that Donnie Van Der Beek was always going to get a chance in the summer anyway. I think the next few weeks at Everton are key because hopefully he can get back in that team. Missed the cup game, missed the game before that because of illness, missed the cup game because he's cup tied. I think he can play for them next week, but then he can't play the week after because we're playing them. So I think Donnie just needs to get some game time and show that he can cut it in the Premier League. I think so far it's been promising. But whoever we got as our manager out of Pochettino and Ten Hag, I think Donnie would have been given a chance anyway, because I'm pretty sure that Pochettino looked at Donnie when he was at Spurs, and obviously Ten Hag had Donnie at Ajax. So obviously the preferable option is Ten Hag anyway, but he would, I think 100% look to get the best out of Donnie Van Der Beek. And that, to me, is economically sound anyway, because Pogba's going to leave. if Pogba leaves, you need to replace Pogba. But you don't need to replace Pogba if you use Donnie Van Der Beek. And Ollie never did that. So at least you've got the man who's got the best chance of getting the best out of him. So, yeah, I think that would be quite exciting. Which then leads us on to Bruno Fernandez. Now, I wanted to have a chat about Bruno because I've always been a massive fan of Bruno Fernandez. And some people just wrongly think that I have favourites that I'll defend all the time. The only player that I would probably defend all the time is Ronaldo because his GOAT status in the game and what he's already done at United in his first stint affords him a massive amount of leeway. But on top of that, he's also not finished. Like he showed it a couple of weeks ago against Spurs. He's a fantastic striker. But in relation to Bruno Fernandez, he's always been a player that I wanted us to bring in. Since February 2020, when he came to the club, he's created more chances than anybody in the Premier League. Trent Alexander-Arnold, Kevin De Bruyne, whoever you want to name, Bruno Fernandes has created more chances in the Premier League since 2022 when he joins than any other player. That is impressive. But why is it not impressive? There is an issue with Bruno Fernandes with a large proportion of our fan base, I believe, even though that statistic is unbelievable and that's what his job is to do, score and create chances. But I saw something on Twitter today and it was absolutely spot on, and it was like his positional discipline is all over the place. And this season it's got even worse. He's up front, he's right wing, he's left wing, he's holding midfielder, he's midfielder. And one thing he's going to have to learn, whether he plays for Real Madrid, Barcelona in the future, whether he was playing for Klopp or Pep now, or whether he's playing for Ten Hag next season, or Pochettino, I suppose, is that he's got to have positional discipline. Now, the fact that he creates so many chances shows me that he can create chances, and he's very good at it. But he needs to add discipline to his game. I think the criticism he's had this season, as a fan of Bruno Fernandes, I think the criticism he's had this season is absolutely spot on. I think his discipline in general has been appalling for quite a long time. The petulance, the moaning, he's clearly not happy. He's frustrated. I get that, but you've got to control that, and you've got to funnel it and control it and focus it on the things that matter. But I did the video on Ten Hag yesterday. I knew people would disagree with this for different aspects. It's my opinion on how Ten Hag sets up and how he will bring into the club. I accept that there are other things that I should have spoken about. I should have spoken about the goalkeeper. I should have spoken about the fact that the wingers do track out wide and the fullbacks do invert at times. I accept that. But ultimately, I stick by the fact that the centre-backs at Ajax are very important. They're not just there to play a high line because people like Daley Blind have played there. They are there to defend the channels, which they do a lot. And they are there to be intelligent footballers who are mobile and mobile in mind as well to read the dangers. I think Maguire's vulnerable. He'll have to put a lot of work in over the summer. And I do believe Bruno Fernandes is vulnerable because if you are a team that has over 60% possession and is creating chance after chance after chance, you can't give your ball to your number 10 who spins and tries a 40-yard ball in behind and gives a goal kick away. Possession is key. Now, I think Bruno Fernandes is good enough to be part of a Ten Hag system and work really, really well. But we all know with our eyes he's going to have to improve his discipline in his game. He can't get the ball and look for the killer pass every time. Sometimes you've got to play the forward pass that is the percentage ball and keep the ball rotating in the final third because that's exactly how Ten Hag will want it. And we might end up with a scenario where Bruno Fernandes, one of my favourite players, the player that's created more chances than anybody else in the Premier League since February 2020, starts next season on the bench because Ten Hag goes, Donnie, you know how to play that number 10 role. You know how I want to play it. Bruno needs to learn it. You'll start the season in it. And I won't have a problem with that. And it's not because I don't think Bruno's better than Donnie. I think he is. But I think in a system, Bruno has yet to prove himself for Portugal or Manchester United consistently that he can have positional discipline. Now, maybe that's because managers have said you don't need to have positional discipline because you can have a free role. It certainly looks like he's had a free role for most of this season. But in a Ten Hag system, he can't have a free role because the press has to be organised. When you've not got the ball, the press needs to be organised. And when you have got the ball, options need to be organised so that you can retain the ball. So I think Bruno is a very interesting player. He's one of my favourite players. I think he's one of our best players. But he's an example of where we need to go. Where we need to build a team that develops tactics individually and collectively and becomes one smooth running machine. and Bruno needs to work on that. I think it's an interesting conversation. Do you think the Glazers out campaign needs to start again as they cleverly dodged it last time, says Mady? I think it might start again. If they don't sort out this share price thing, I think it might start again. And that's why they need to move quickly on the manager to start promoting some positivity ahead of any issues that may start again for them. Mark, doesn't surprise me that nothing has happened yet. I think you know and I know Rangnick has got another season. Also, Maguire might be sold. Slow Sports News. Bruno's our best player. Bruno also contributes to exposing the midfield and defence. That's why I get when you buy players without defining how to play, says Humphrey. There's a lot of potential in Bruno. There's a lot of unlocked potential in Bruno. And we always end up going back to the same issue. We haven't developed our players over the last 3 years. So it's very impossible, or it's very hard to write off any player. Because I've just realised what the rustling is. It's the top I'm wearing. Active man. Active top. 40% off with the code EXTRA. Boohoo man. I don't know where this Maguire out story is coming from. It's completely preposterous. It just will not happen. And it doesn't matter what any of us think about Harry Maguire. Thanks, Sain Miassi. It doesn't matter what any of us think about Harry Maguire. He's unsellable. Unsellable. You can't buy a player for 80 million 3 years ago, give him 200 grand a week, and then say he's not good enough anymore. Let's sell him, because I wish we would. I don't know whether I don't know whether I wish we would, but I wish we could. We can't. There's not even an option. The great thing about being in a part of a rebuild is you want to have an option to sell a player. I don't think we've got an option to sell a player. I don't think we've got an option to sell that player. Do you think Martial is the problem, or has he just been unlucky considering the Sevilla situation, says Jameson? The Martial situation is concerning. There's a lot of stick coming his way in Sevilla. I thought he'd do really well there, but he's struggling a little bit. But that's bad news for us, because I wanted him to do well there, so that if we keep him, he's done well, and if we sell him, he's done well. If Liverpool win the treble, surely there will be protests, says Connor. I don't know. If Ten Hag fails, is the club cursed, says Liam Edwards. Let's not start failing before we've even appointed him. I wish we would have got Grealish. He would have been better for us than City, and he's proven he can play in a real system, says Dean. But look, yeah, that reminds me what Dean was saying there. Please smash a like on the video, by the way. I feel that development has been so poor at this football club for, maybe 3, 4, 5 years. I certainly think even under the Mourinho regime, there was a lack of development of our players. That it's very difficult to write anybody off, because some of the performances this season have been unbelievably bad. Some of these players are not as bad as this. I firmly believe Luke Shaw is a fantastic left-back who's been very poor this season. And if I can say that about Luke Shaw, and there'll be a lot of people in the chat saying you're wrong, he's crap, well, that's just opinion. Fine, you've got one, I've got one. But if I can say that about Luke Shaw, I think he's a very good left-back who's had a very bad season. And I think he can be a very good left-back next year. How many of these bad performers can be better players next season with a pre-season under a proper manager who will coach and develop them over the next couple of years? Surely you can say that about everybody. The goalkeeper situation, David De Gea has been one of the best goalkeepers in the world this year in doing what his job is, to save shots with amazing dexterity and talent. Can his distribution, which has admittedly not been great this season, be improved? Of course it can. Of course it can. And if it is improved, we've got an even better David De Gea. Can Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Dalot develop more than what they've done this season with proper coaching and a proper system? Of course they can. Can Harry Maguire be better than what he is at the moment? Of course he can. He's not as bad as he's been this season. I don't think he's the right centre-back for us long term, and I would be looking to replace him, but he can definitely be better than he is. He has been a good centre-back. He can be a better centre-back. Whether he's the right centre-back, I personally don't think so, but of course he can be better. Luke Shaw I've spoken about. McTominay, there's obviously some untapped talent there, because people like Sir Alex and Carrick and Mourinho and Ollie and even Rangnick love his temperament. So there's obviously some reason to like him. Under a better coach, hopefully we can untap that. Bruno, we've spoken about. Rashford, look, there's something there. Can we get it out of him? With development, I think we can. So we have got players without going into the transfer market who can be a lot better than they are. We do need to go into the transfer market. In my mind, we need a centre-back. We need a really good CDM. We need another striker. And I'd want another right winger. I might even want another midfielder. But to be honest with you, if you bring a top CDM in, you could bring Garner back. You've got McTominay and Fred who are going to go nowhere, let's be honest. And then you've got Bruno and Donnie. You've got 6 midfielders with a CDM. We probably don't need a CDM. We probably don't need another midfielder, to be fair, if we're going to use Donnie. So that would afford you to get a right winger instead, which I do think we need. But then again, if you get the best out of Rashford, do you need that with Elanga and Sancho and, who knows who else might come through from the youth? We need a striker, we need a CDM, and we need another centre-back. That's what we need. And look, I will certainly I certainly will give these players another chance. I think a lot of them don't deserve it. I think they've really tarnished their career, and I think a lot of fans will not be willing to give some of these players a second chance, and some of them should probably be looking to move in the summer. But for me, I think if we get Ten Hag in, I think I would be very interested to see what these players can do. I don't believe some of them actually have the footballing brain to play a Ten Hag system, but they must all be given a chance to do that. And the manager should be trusted. And the manager might come in and say, look, I want Harry Maguire as my centre-back, I want Marcus Rashford as my right winger, I want Scott McTominay as my holding midfielder, and I want Bruno Fernandez as my number 10. He might just say that off the off. And if he does, he's the manager that we want. We've got to back him. So let's see what happens with it. I'd love Tomori. He ain't going to leave AC Milan, but I would love Tomori. Anthony for right winger I think is interesting. Twansebi's having a bloody nightmare, Jordan. I don't know what's going on with Twansebi. He went back to Villa, didn't work out. He's gone to Napoli, it's not working out. Sometimes you're wrong. Fosu Mensah, a lot of people thought he was going to be good enough. He wasn't. I thought Pereira was going to be good enough. He wasn't. Maybe Twansebi just isn't going to be good enough. And I think that if Twansebi ends up not being good enough for United or at the highest level, I'll always look at Solskjaer and say, what was the truth? What was the truth? Because that game he played away against PSG, where he was the right-sided centre-back and he was constantly being run at by Mbappe and Neymar, and he had a fantastic game, and then we never really picked him again. That, to me, was where he got it wrong. And you know what he did? He stuck with Lindelof and Maguire, didn't he? Lindelof and Maguire. He did it with Eric Bailly as well. Eric Bailly came in against Chelsea, played absolutely brilliantly, dropped him to bring Lindelof back. So I think that was the point with Twansebi, that if his career doesn't go to plan, he can always look back at that game and say, why did I not get a run of games after that? And only Ole Gunnar Solskjaer knows the answer. Love your work. You should be United's director of football, says Anthony. Thank you very much, Anthony. It's always nice to get some positivity. I don't think there's any point talking about it anymore, and I wish Solskjaer all the best in what he does, but he was a bad appointment. I wanted him. He was a bad appointment. Harry Maguire, I wanted him. He was a bad signing. Aaron Wan-Bissaka, I wanted him. He was a bad signing. Ultimately, we get things wrong. Don't mean we have to be horrible about it. We get things wrong. But I would always look at Axel Twansebi's career if he doesn't work out and go, that game where he basically pocketed Neymar and Mbappe, if that was under Pep or that was under Klopp, that player would have been developed from that point. And he didn't. He didn't get developed. He didn't get chances. And I don't know why. Sunshine, Gary Neville. Come on, Phil, let's go and get some cans, man. Mad for it. Yeah, super, our lad, our kid. Come on, man. Let's get down Hotel Football and have a mad one. Twansebi wasn't good enough. I'll always remember the Turkish game. Yeah, but I don't think Ollie instilled any confidence in him, mates. I really don't think he did. And I think that would have been that was the key option. That was the key thing. But look, we're talking about the past. Got to talk about the future. I think Manchester United will look to buy a centre back. We've been linked to Akanji. We're obviously interested in Rudiger. There are other options out there. I can never get his name right at Barcelona. Arahu. I can't get his name right. You know who I mean. I've heard something today that we're willing to offer 30 million quid to Barcelona for him. I don't know why we'd need to. He's only got a year left on his contract. But if we can do a deal like that, there's a lot of people who think he's absolutely fantastic. And playing with someone like Rafael Varane, I think would be very interesting. Interesting quote from Paul Pogba coming in here. Paul Pogba, I've had depression in my career, but we don't talk about it. Sometimes you don't know who you are. You just want to isolate yourself, be alone. These are unmistakable signs. I think we all suffer with that, and it's very big of Paul Pogba to come out and talk about that sort of thing. for me, tiredness is the thing. Tiredness plays havoc with my mental health. I'll wake up in the morning in a terrible mood. I'll be rubbish at FIFA, which is, I'm not joking. Like, my whole day is just blurry in the grey cloud and everything like that. So I think I really do think it's good that people like Paul Pogba come out and speak about it, and Jesse Lingard come out and speak about it, because everybody is impacted by it. Everybody's impacted by it, and whether it's a shallow way or a deep way, everybody, whether it's a counsellor or any support group, will always say, when you're dealing with mental health and depression, it's always good to talk, because the minute you talk about it, people will applaud you for talking about it, and they'll also demonstrate empathy in a way by saying that they have those similar thoughts. So it's always a good thing to talk about. It doesn't matter. You don't need to be Paul Pogba to talk about it. You don't need to be Paul Pogba to experience hate or moments of isolation or depression. We all get it. We all get it. Mark, what do you think of Dejan? And I think, look, some of the stuff that I would hope that Paul Pogba doesn't feel alone and depressed because people are racist towards him or people give him abuse, because that would not be very nice to think that any human being is suffering because of that. But when you're a top level sportsman, the margins are so small, and you're your own worst critic. I remember Paul Pogba saying before that he doesn't listen to critics because he's his own biggest critic, and I think we're all like that. I think we all have the voice inside our head. I hope we do anyway, because God, I'm living a very different life to anyone else. I don't have a voice talking to me, but I don't know what the voice is. I can't hear the voice, but we all have thoughts about, I'm going to get up today and brush my teeth and stuff like that. And I think if you are like someone like Paul Pogba, who's their own biggest critic, that can be really hard, because it depends on how high you set your standards. Maybe Paul Pogba thinks he should be winning the Golden Boot every year, or the Ballon d'Or. And if you're not hitting that, you've got that battle, haven't you? So, yeah. Mark, what do you think about Kulevski as right winger? I think he's doing a great job at Spurs, and I don't think he'll be leaving Spurs. Do you think we will see Greenwood again, says Gert? I can't talk about Greenwood, mate. I can't, because I have emotions towards that are probably unfair to even state what I think should happen with him. But ultimately, he's part of an investigation, and that's all I'm going to say. Is it safe to say Ollie was the worst manager in the post-Sir Alex Ferguson era? I mean, I do think so, Oz, but I think there's a fair case to say it was Moyes. A minor observation, but the change of the United logo changed from the early 2000s shows a symbolic change from being a football club to a brand, says Abdullah. There you go, Fafana. Thoughts on Tonali? Always been a big fan of Tonali and Kessie when they were at Atalanta, and I believe I believe Tonali was from... I always get it mixed up with Tonali. Was he Brescia? Or was that Barella? Always get mixed up who came from Tonali and Barella. Always get mixed up. But somebody in the chat will let us know. But yeah, I think Tonali's a good player. Whether he'd work in the Prem or not, I don't know. But I like him. I like him. I think he's a good player. I really do. I had a message. Message in a bottle. Tonali was from Brescia. High five. Points for me. Points for me. We should do that sometimes. We should do Quiz Goldbridge. Test my knowledge. So that means Barella was from... Oh, fuck it. I can't even think of the name of the club that Barella was from. It's not Sassuolo. Where was Barella from? Not Torino. I'm trying not to look at the chat. Cagliari, was it? Is that right? Yeah, that would be right. That would be right. Yeah. Napoli got Twansebi to replace Koulibaly when he was at the AFCON, but he immediately got hurt. Plus Koulibaly, Romani, and Wan. Jesus are brilliant, says Jamison Gray. Yeah, he's probably been a bit unlucky. Yeah, probably has been a bit lucky. So, do I think that Eric Ten Hag to Manchester United is imminent? I suppose that's the biggest question that somebody's just asked that I've not purposely ignored, but I want to give you the answer because I think we all cling to these things, and even in my mind, I don't know what I'm going to say here because I think that is the most important question for yourself, and I will give you my answer. Do I think Ten Hag is close to becoming Manchester United's manager? Because it's the question that everybody wants to swerve because they don't want to give their opinion and then look an idiot. Right. I think at the moment there's a lot of tier 2 information that Ten Hag is the preferred option. Do I believe that? You know what? I do. I do believe that the people who are talking about it are not terrible journalists. I think they're credible in what they do, and I think they do have information, and I do think that they believe that Ten Hag is the preferred option. What I would say is that doesn't mean that we're going to get Ten Hag, because you never know what's been briefed and whether it's been correctly. Are Man United putting it out there on purpose to see what the reaction is? I don't know. But I'll give you the honest answer. Do I think Manchester United are close to appointing Ten Hag? I think they have to be. And that's not sitting on the fence. I think they have to be. I'll go back to what I said on Monday morning show. United will go into this week knowing what manager they want, and they will come out at the end of this week knowing which manager they're going to get. And I believe that has to be Erik Ten Hag. And the information that we're getting that's leaking out at the moment seems to suggest that's right. If they're getting Pochettino, they won't get that deal done this week. So it has to be Ten Hag. They have to get Ten Hag. And therefore, do I think Man United are going to get Ten Hag as their manager? Yes, I do. Because I believe they have to. It's the right decision at the right time that gives us time to rebuild the football club and get started on that next week and April. Pochettino, too expensive, not the right man, not the right time. And we've got to get moving forward. What's your thoughts on Kent at Rangers, says Wayne Finnegan? I haven't really had any thoughts about him. Marcelino, something about De Gea disappointing. When I argued Maguire, Rashford, McTominay, the real disappointments, he told me to learn football, says Marcelino. Look, we've all got strong opinions. I really don't care about anybody who has a different opinion to me, and I really don't care if they tell people they don't know football, because everybody believes they know football better than anybody else. And the biggest prick in the world is the person who goes, have you seen what this person said about this? They're wrong and I'm right. It's just no way to solve an argument, is it? And I've done it before, and I've been a bit of a prick. Sometimes live content, you do get a bit frustrated, I'll admit that. But in a calmer me, I'll admit I've been a bit of a prick at times by saying, you don't know football, you're wrong. I mean, ultimately, you're going to get caught out when you're live doing that, and I've got sympathy with people who do that. But De Gea is not the problem at Manchester United. He may be a problem, but he is not the problem. He is factually a goalkeeper that has saved us about 12 points this season. Whereas Harry Maguire has probably cost us a number of points this season, and so has Marcus Rashford, and so has certain other players. So David De Gea is not the problem at this football club. And I think that what we need to do is what I said a few minutes ago. We need to get the manager in, and then the manager must be given the freedom to do what needs to be done. And if he decides Bruno Fernandez is not good enough, or Harry Maguire is not good enough, or David De Gea is not good enough, or Cristiano Ronaldo is not good enough, or Marcus Rashford's not good enough, then he must be given the freedom to get rid of them. And the club must back him on that. And I believe the fans would back. I don't think there's a player at that. Is there a player at that club that if Ten Hag came in and said we need to move him on, you would go, "Oh, get rid of him. He's an idiot." I don't think there is a man. There's no. I'd be stunned if he did it with Ronaldo, and I'd like, "Oh, that's." I don't agree with that, but I'd still go along with it. I'd have major concerns if he said get rid of De Gea and Ronaldo and Bruno and keep Rashford, McTominay and Maguire. I'd be like, right, okay. Let's see where this is going, but I think it's going the wrong way. But we've got to be about the club. We've got to be about the club. I think MUFC MPB is just tagging in tier 2 journalists now, because Sam Pilger is not somebody I would say is tier 1. He needs to start tagging in the tier 1s. Like, that's what he needs to do, because he's done another one now, and this is from Sam Pilger. There is a growing momentum behind Ten Hag to Manchester United. If Ten Hag is offered the United role, he will accept it. And so that to me is not as good as the ones that we've had before, because if Ten Hag is offered the United job, he'll accept it. We already know that. Will he be offered it? So look, I don't think the momentum's moved any more than it was half an hour ago, but it's certainly heading in the right direction. I know we need to strengthen at centre-back, right winger and CDM, but do you think we need to get a right-back in, says Bradley. My information is that United are not looking for a right-back this summer, and I was told that quite recently. We're not looking at a right-back this summer, which is a shame because there are some really good right-backs. The Forest right-back he's on loan from Middlesbrough. Spence is really exciting. I mean, I think Bayern Munich are looking at him. So he's very exciting, and he would be reasonably priced. You've got people like Lamptey. There are a good few right backs out there, but again, in a different way, we're sort of committed to a £50 million. We talk about Harry Maguire not being sellable, and we only bought him 3 years ago. The same summer we spent £50 million on Wan-Bissaka, and no one's going to pay £50 million for him, and no one's going to give him the wages either. The problem we've got with Aaron Wan-Bissaka is probably a bigger problem than we've got with Harry Maguire, because I don't think we can sell Harry Maguire, but most teams play two centre-backs, and he has been a good centre-back in the past. And I could see an Everton looking at Harry Maguire and going, let's get him. But with Aaron Wan-Bissaka, I mean, if we tried to sell him, who would give us any money for him? There's so many good right-backs in the Premier League and the Championship at the moment that I think he's unsellable. So maybe that's why United will not look for a right-back, because we've got Dalot and Wan-Bissaka, and the hope is that maybe Erik ten Hag comes in and gets the best out of them. But do you see Wan-Bissaka or Dalot in an Erik ten Hag system? Can you imagine that either of those playing for him at Ajax? And that's the job. Imagine if he can turn them into that sort of player. If the youth team win the FA Cup, will you do a video looking who could be promoted? Says Ryan. I don't do that, Ryan, because I think it's just total speculation. I've always said in relation to youth players, until they play for the first team, you can't. You never know. Youth players can look really good in the youth setup, but until they play for the first team, you never really know. But there's a lot of exciting players, as we know. Right, thanks everyone for watching. I've really enjoyed the show tonight. It's been absolutely fantastic, considering we haven't got a match this week, and but there's just so many. The shows are fantastic, especially the 8 o'clock shows at the moment. I'm really enjoying them. So I look forward to tomorrow's show already. Lovely conversation as ever. You're a bunch of legends. Fantastic community. I like the conversations that we have because they're very. Let me just get rid of this idiot. They're very. There's always one, isn't there? The conversation flows really well because there's lots of different opinions, and I love it. So thank you everybody. And thoughts on Ganacho again. Until he plays for the first team, I'm not going to hype him up. He looks very exciting. He's training with the Argentinian side. I get the excitement, but I'm not putting any pressure on the lad. It's like when Alanga played bad and everyone's like he's a load of shit, and then he plays good and he's brilliant. Like, people seem to not understand that young players will be inconsistent, and you've just got to be patient with them and wait and see. I'm not putting any pressure on them. Thanks everyone for watching. I don't do TSFC at night, mates. I do it at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and it will be back tomorrow. And take care, everyone. I'll speak to you all soon. Thanks for watching. And don't forget, Boohoo Man, active range, 40% off with an extra 10% when you use the code EXTRA. Some fantastic activewear range that you can get. The link's in the video description. Check it out. Samurai says, I love the hoodie. Looking handsome, bro. You can get one yourself with 40% off with the code EXTRA. Thanks for everyone watching. Who gives you extra?